The aftermath of abuse can leave a deep and lasting impact on a person's psyche. The physical scars may heal over time, but the emotional wounds can fester over years. And survivors of abuse often find themselves struggling with a lack of trust in themselves and the world around them. The trauma they experienced can make it difficult for them to feel safe and secure, leading to a constant state of anxiety and fear. And this internal battle can be overwhelming and isolating, leaving survivors feeling trapped and alone. Now, understanding the psychological effects of abuse is crucial as you help yourself heal and move forward with your life. Now, why are these survivors unable to trust with themselves? And there are a variety of reasons for that. Some possible explanations are betrayal. Abuse involves a breach of trust, with the abuser using the survivor's vulnerabilities or trust to gain power over them. And this can leave the survivor feeling betrayed and make it difficult for them to trust themselves or others in the future. Self-doubt is another one. Abuse can erode a person's self-esteem and self-confidence, leading them to doubt their own judgment and decision-making capabilities. This can make it hard for them to trust themselves to make good choices or stand up for themselves. Number 3 is learned helplessness. In some cases, survivors of abuse may feel helpless to change their situation, leading to a sense of learned helplessness. And this can make it difficult for them to trust themselves to take action or make changes in their life. And then number 4 is a fear of vulnerability. People who have experienced abuse, once bitten, twice shy, may develop a fear of vulnerability and be hesitant to open themselves up to others, including themselves. And this can make it difficult for them to trust themselves to be authentic or to allow themselves to be vulnerable. And trauma. Abuse is a traumatic experience that can have long-lasting effects on a person's mental and emotional well-being. And trauma can make it difficult for a person to trust themselves or others and can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And these are just a few possible explanations of why someone who has experienced abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, may struggle to trust themselves. And it's important to remember that healing from abuse is a complex and individual process, and everyone's experiences are unique. Now, there is this great need for self-compassion on the part of these survivors, where compassion towards oneself, it's a very important, essential aspect of healing from the trauma of abuse. And by practicing self-compassion, the survivor can begin to rebuild their sense of self-worth and trust in their own abilities. And here are some ways that the survivor can use self-compassion to rebuild trust in themselves. There are a lot of internal struggles that survivors go through and that can leave them feeling powerless, unable to trust themselves and questioning their own worth. And they may blame themselves for the abuse they endured and feel responsible for the actions of their abusers. And by acknowledging the manipulative tactics used by abusers, survivors can begin to understand that the abuse was not their fault and that they are not to blame for what happened. And letting go of self-blame can be a significant challenge for survivors. However, through self-compassion, survivors can learn to let go of self-blame and recognize that they did the best they could in a difficult situation. By validating their emotions and acknowledging their pain, survivors can begin to process their feelings and move towards healing. Focusing on self-care is an important aspect of self-compassion. Survivors can start by taking care of their physical and emotional needs, rebuild their sense of self-worth, and trust in themselves. Seeking support from trusted family and friends and professionals is crucial in the healing process. And by talking to someone who understands and supports them, the survivor can begin to feel less alone and more confident in their ability to heal. By using self-compassion to rebuild trust in themselves, survivors of abuse can begin to move forward on the path towards healing and recovery. And it's important to remember that healing from trauma of abuse is a process, and everybody's journey is unique. Now, let me tell you a client's story so that it can help you feel a little better about you not being able to see through their manipulation. Now, one of my clients had been married to her husband for 5 years before she recognized the abuse in her relationship. And for years, her husband had been controlling and manipulative, but she could not recognize it as abuse because he was very charming and loving at times, and she was also vulnerable. She was not very solid in her own sense of self. And over time, his behavior became more erratic and unpredictable, leaving her feeling isolated and afraid. Now, this couple decided to attend therapy with someone together, hoping to work through their relationship issues. However, the husband was so skilled at manipulating the conversation that even the therapist couldn't recognize the abuse at times. And they often took the husband's side in disagreements, leaving the wife feeling alone and unheard. And despite the challenges, the wife continued to attend therapy sessions and began to work. She finally switched to us. She took up platinum coaching, one-on-one coaching with us, and she started working one-on-one. And through working with us, she started to understand the patterns of abuse in the relationship, her own vulnerabilities as to why she was getting hooked to that abuse, and she was able to develop a safety plan. Now, eventually, she continued to work with us through her trauma and rebuild her sense of self-worth and trust in herself, that she became very, very solid in herself. And she was able to understand that she was vulnerable in her own ways, and at the same time, these manipulators are so skilled at manipulating that it's very hard to see. So she was able to forgive herself for not being able to see through that abuse. And the story also highlights the importance of taking help not just from anybody, but from very trusted professionals who know what they're doing, and get the healing and help you need to work out your trauma of abuse. Now, it's not uncommon for individuals to have vulnerabilities or blind spots that make it difficult to recognize abuse. So it's very important to work on your own vulnerabilities. And these vulnerabilities may stem from past experiences or traumas, such as childhood abuse, neglect or abandonment, which can impact what constitutes abuse. And some individuals may struggle to identify certain behaviors as abusive if they have been normalized in their environment. Furthermore, abusers are often skilled at exploiting these vulnerabilities and using manipulation techniques to maintain power and control. And this makes it even harder for individuals to recognize the abuse, and sometimes individuals start believing that the abuser's behavior is a reflection of their own inadequacies or fault. So, experiencing abuse is never your fault, but working on your vulnerabilities is your own responsibility. And you have to work in a very systematic way with trained professionals to start trusting yourself again and heal yourself from the trauma of abuse. Now, another thing is playing victim doesn't help. So while abuse is not your fault, at the same time, you don't have a right to play victim, because while we may have our vulnerabilities that make us susceptible, we also have the agency and ability to take responsibility for our healing and recovery. Playing the victim role is very tempting. I see people, they inquire about our programs, they say, oh no, I think I'll figure it out myself, I'm a life coach myself, I'm a this myself, I'm a that myself. And I don't take help, but then I keep seeing that they keep asking me the same questions on my YouTube lives. I see the same comments in my Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn posts, asking about the same pain and sending me direct messages for the same issues. And I wonder, why would they not invest in themselves and take a systematic program to help themselves? So playing the victim role may be a strategy for them, and it seems tempting, but the point is you're still suffering. And that mentality is very disempowering and prevents you from taking necessary steps towards healing and recovery and living to your full potential. And it's important that you take an active role in your healing journey and address your vulnerabilities through one-on-one coaching, through self-care and other forms of support. And this may involve learning new coping mechanisms, setting healthy boundaries, and developing a stronger sense of self-worth. Now, by taking responsibility for our healing, we can regain a sense of control over our lives and move towards a brighter and more fulfilling future. Abuse, in conclusion, can affect a person's ability to trust themselves, and there are many possible reasons why this may be the case. Now, the process of healing from abuse is unique to each individual, but self-compassion is an important aspect of rebuilding trust. By recognizing that abuse is not your fault, letting go of self-blame, validating your emotions, practicing self-care, seeking support, getting that one-on-one coaching and help that you need from ease coaches, survivors can begin to rebuild their sense of self-worth and trust in their abilities. It's important to work on vulnerabilities and seek professional support. And healing is a complex journey. Give yourself the time and make it possible with self-compassion, support, and a commitment to your own well-being.